Hello everybody, and a belated Happy New Year. So as I mentioned in my last video, I have been working a bit on getting a new version of my freeware game ASCII Sector out, and that has been going well, and I expect to probably have that version out sometime this week, most likely. But this is a video about Hidden Asset, so let's take a look at what I have been working on for that game. The primary thing I have been working on has been improving the interface for gadgets in the game. Gadgets are objects or devices that you can place or attach on objects or characters in the game world and affect them or control them in some way, like being able to remotely lock or unlock a door, or recording a character's voice as he talks to somebody else, and then using that voice recording to open a secure door that will only open if by the voice of that guard or something like that. So anyway, the way that the gadget interface worked before, I don't actually have a game version, but I found an old YouTube video here of the game from almost 4 years ago, when it was still called Hostile Takeover. So let me just play that video. So here I have a gadget that I attached to a door, and as you can see here, the way that the interface worked back then and also worked until just a few weeks ago. Let me just wait until I place it again. The gadgets would show up here over on the left side of the screen, and of course the problem with that is if you have a bunch of gadgets, that will eventually fill up all this space on the left side of the screen. So that's not exactly a viable solution. So what I have come up with instead, for now at least, let me just load the game. Not really sure what's going on here. Okay, hold on a minute. This is Avast antivirus blocking the executable. It does this sometimes, which is pretty damn annoying. Okay, I'll have to. What it does is, instead of running the program, it opens like 3 versions of the program, but it doesn't actually run it. So let me just fix that, and I'll be back in just a minute. And we are back. Don't you just love it when your antivirus behaves like a virus itself? So anyway, let's fire up the game now. I think this is it. Okay, so here we have 2 gadgets, and I'm going to place a remote door lock on this door. And what we get instead of what we got before is something similar to the inventory bar down here. Instead we get this gadget bar up here that you can scroll when you get enough gadgets. So I can lock and unlock, and I can use power search on the photocopier, and I can control all that stuff remotely. So that is definitely a lot better, since I can have an unlimited amount of gadgets here and just scroll to get to the gadget I want. So the next thing I had to fix or change was that the way that this behaves now. To retrieve any of these gadgets, you have to walk up to the object that it is attached to, and then click here. Somewhat similar to when you pick up ground objects on the ground. So if I had to get this one back as well, I would have to walk up here. And that can become pretty annoying if one of your gadgets is attached to an object that is close to a guard patrolling or something. Also, just in general, it's annoying to have to go back and pick up all your gadgets when you have finished a mission. So what I have done instead, let me just exit out of this old version of the game and fire up the new and improved version. Okay, so now I have a bunch of gadgets here, and let's attach one to the store here. So as you can tell now, I don't get the label to click on to pick up the gadget. Instead, I can just, as the tooltip tells me, I can click and hold, and then I can drag it back to my inventory, or if I want to, I can drag it to another object to attach it to. So that should be a lot more user-friendly. Also, since I can now hold and drag objects here, I can, let me just place a bunch of gadgets. I can also rearrange gadgets. So if I have a bunch and I'm having a hard time keeping track of them, I can rearrange them in any order I like. That makes more sense to me. So that's a lot better. So that's basically it for the gadget interface. For now, there are these two gadgets in the game, but I have plans for a bunch more gadgets. For example, an electric trap that you can place on the floor, and when somebody, a guard preferably, walks over it, you can trigger it and then electrocute the guard. So nice stuff like that. But that's all in the future. For now, I have improved the interface for using gadgets, and that's a big improvement usability wise, I think. So I'm going to do a bit of scripting now. If you watched the last video I made, you may remember that when I walked inside this building for the first time, there was a waitress and a restaurant manager standing here arguing about one of the guests, actually the guest of honor for the party upstairs, the birthday party, that he is being a bit of an asshole to the waitress. And then she walks into the elevator, takes the elevator up, and takes the elevator up. And then when the player gets up here, she's just standing here looking at the asshole guy here, who is also your target. So what I want is that when the player gets up here in the elevator, there will be a short dialogue between these two. And also at the end of the dialogue, I want the waitress here to walk over here and sit on this chair. Basically because if when you're attacking the target, you're standing on this tile, then when he gets up to defend himself, he can't walk to near these two tiles because they're occupied, so he will often stand up over here, which is kind of awkward. So if he is out of the way, he can just stand up there. So that is the two things I want to fix in scripting. So let's go to my script. Here it is, and I already written the dialogue I want them to have. And when the dialogue ends, this timer will be set to 100 and it will start running. So for this I can reuse some other scripting code, since I already have some code that triggers a dialogue, which is the code that triggers when I enter the restaurant building for the first time. So let's find some of that code and reuse it. Here is part of it. And I only need these two parts. This part is the one where the waitress calls the manager bitch, just as the waitress walks out of the door, and this is the part of the code that has the waitress taking the elevator upstairs. So I don't need that. What I do need is this and this. This part triggers the dialogue between the two characters, the two NPCs, when the timer reaches a certain value, and this makes one of the characters walk to a certain spot, and I can use that for having the waitress walk over to sit on the chair when the dialogue is done. So let's start with copying this. And that is, oops, between the waitress and Tony Vargas. And that timer was called Tony Waitress Dialogue. And the waitress is this character. And she should start talking to Tony. And then the timer should stop again. And then we have the other part here where the waitress should move over to, whoops, that's wrong. Should move over to the tile, and that tile is on the second floor, and it has the coordinates. I don't know because I disabled all debug information, so let me just get that back. And let me just disable Avast since it likes to be a pain in the ass. Yep, I know. Okay, let's take the elevator up. And this tile is tile 79, 109. No, 97. 109. And when she is sitting there, she should be looking in direction 4. Alright, so far so good. But of course I need something to trigger this timer to reach 74 before to trigger the dialogue to start. And what should trigger that is the player character getting to the second floor in the elevator, and that means that he can be on any of these 4 tiles. So I need basically 4 triggers, one for each of the tiles that the player can be on. So is there something I can reuse? There should be the code when I enter the restaurant building for the first time. Okay, here it is. And since there are 4 triggers for that, I have to make sure that it only triggers the first time the player is on one of these 4 tiles. And what I can do is make sure that this timer is 0. since after the dialogue has started, it won't ever be 0 again. So the player should be at, let's start with this tile, that's 97 and 112. And timer should be 0. Then timer, whoops. I don't need to reset it, so since it should already be 0. Yeah, that should be it. And let's do the same thing for the other 3 tiles, and that is 96, 112, and I imagine 113. Yeah. 96, 113. When the dialogue ends, what is the timer set to? It is set to 100. Yeah, and then there's 35 cycles. This is also wrong. Before the waitress will walk over to the chair and sit down. Okay, so let's try this. I have to compile the script first. Where is it? Here it is. And maybe it already works. Now if I just reset the script, let's try it. Resetting, and then going up again. Dialogue definitely starts. Does she walk over to sit down? She does. Awesome. Well, that works. So that's it for this video. Thank you for watching, and I will see you again in 2 weeks.